And good evening, Geshe-la. We are happy, fortunate, delighted to welcome you for the third time in a row, the final of 3 with teachings on the perfection of the Heart Sutra, the perfection of wisdom. And we have set the right motivation by chanting the sutra before you arrive, Geshe-la. And we are also ready to hear the final words for this time around. And you don't need further introduction because many of people already know you. But I would like to offer you a mandala before you switch on to the teachings. Sa shi perki juk sheng me to tram ri ra benji ni de gyan padi Sangye shing du me te u wai gi Roku nam dan shing la Chur pa chu Ye sun lama dam pa kye nam Ke chur ki kala Kien se tru sin tri Ki cha sam pe du chin na la Sa kye chu ki cha pa Bak tu so Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kamya Chayami. Thank you. And with that said, I will hand over the word to you, Geshe-la.
Okay. So today is our kind of last sessions on Heart Sutra. Again, thank you for joining, and in this wonderful to see all of you. And we will start as usual with the motivations. First, trying to quiet your mind by watching the breath mindfully for a few moments. Then we can try to generate a good intention by thinking, by us coming here together, giving our precious time to listen, to reflect and contemplate. May all of this become cause and conditions to actualize the wisdom path, which is the main subject of this Heart Sutra, within the mind stream of all sentient beings. And that wisdom relies on the emptiness that is supported both with the mind. May we be able to progress on the 5 path, ten bhumi, and eventually achieve our highest potential fully awakened state. So we can be not only help and benefit to sentient beings, but to be able to do greatest help and greatest benefit. But not only to some sentient being, but to each and every sentient being. Okay, so then we do the reflection. Sangye chedang zobe zonam la changju padu dane dagi sheshe ki besonam ge dola penje sangye duba sangye chedang zobe zonam la changju padu dagi sheshe ki besonam ge dola penje sangye duba sangye chedang zobe zonam la changju padu dane dagi sheshe ki besonam ge dola penje sangye duba. So we kind of discuss about, by following the Heart Sutra, we discuss about how not only the person or the self is empty of inherent nature, but also all five aggregates are also empty of inherent nature. And not only the five aggregates, also all the 12 senses are also empty of inherent nature. And not only 12 senses, the 18 elemental constitutions are also empty of inherent nature. So we kind of finish up to there. How all those objects or phenomena when we do not use the ultimate analysis, but if we use just conventional analysis, then all of those objects or phenomena, due to other factors, conditions, come together, and it has its own individual functioning and result and effect. But when you analyze into its nature, it's into the very into the very nature with the ultimate analysis, then we cannot find any of those objects within its parts or within the basis or outside of the basis and part. And therefore, since it cannot withstand that kind of ultimate analysis, it cannot be ultimately existence. Therefore, it cannot be inherent existence. And therefore, they are empty of inherent existence, empty of ultimate existence. And so I think, and we also discuss about understanding within each of those objects of two reality, the ultimate reality and conventional reality, in terms of ultimate reality, how things do not exist, and in terms of conventional reality, how things exist. And through understanding of the true reality within each of those each of objects, so that we don't fall into any of the extremes. And today we come to the way it is continuity, where there is no aging, no extinction, there is no ignorance and no extinction with ignorance, and so on, up to and including no aging and death and no extinction with aging or death. So again, unconventionally, due to many cause, condition, factors coming together, there is the ignorance, due to our past imprint, due to not realizing the ultimate nature of phenomena. So due to the mind coming into the object, contact with the objects. So due to all these different conditions, factors, then ignorance arises. And, and the fundamental ignorance. And due to that fundamental ignorance, then, other delusions also arises, aversions, anger, attachments, and due to those delusions, then we engage in the action or create the karma, So due to the ignorance, there is the actions of the karma. we create the action of karma through three doors. And after we create the actions or engage in the actions, in that moment, the imprint of that karmic actions is left in consciousness, mental consciousness. And that mental consciousness that carry that imprint of that actions of karma. So due to the ignorance, there is the actions, the karma. Due to the action, there is a consciousness. So each of those causes give rise to following, the following link. Following link. How each of those link give rise to the following link. And then at the time of death, that karmic imprint that is left in consciousness, is activated by craving and grasping, craving and grasping, And when that karmic seed is being activated by craving and grasping, then that karmic seed fully kind of, develop to actualize the result in very next moment. And so due to the craving, there's a grasping. Due to the grasping, there is the existence, And so, and due to that existence, then as the next moment, then there is the result. Then, the sixth result, and that is the name and form, and then the link of name and form, that is the name is the physical form, and the name is the rest of the four aggregates. And so there is a name and the form, and then slowly the sixth sense started to develop. And so then there is this next link of six senses, and when there are six senses develop, so there is already the consciousness, the mind is already developed during the form and name, and then now six senses, the faculties, six faculties. And then when there is the object, when there is the sixth sense faculty, and when there is the consciousness, then it comes into the contact. So next comes the contact. And when your consciousness comes into the contact with the objects through those sense faculties, then we distinguish, those different objects differently, good, bad, nice, not nice, pleasant. And then when through that kind of contact, then there is the feelings arises, according to the contact, then sometimes unpleasant feeling, sometimes it's a pleasant feeling. So the different feeling arises, And then, the moment there is a name and form, then from that moment, the aging, and so birth is started, and then also from the very moment of birth, aging has started. So there is birth and aging. There is the birth, and then after birth, then the aging start, and then gradually death, aging and death. So those are 12 link. How we sentient beings are caught up or bondage into the samsara and continue to experience the suffering due to those 12 link, how each of previous link give rise to this following link, and then at the end experience the suffering of the samsara, but those links come into existence because of the previous cause, because of many cause conditions, because of many factors. They do not come into existence independently by itself. It cannot exist without depending on its preceding cause and conditions and the factors. Those links cannot exist independently or by itself, from its own side by itself, And so therefore, there is no inherent existence of aging and death. There is no inherent existence of birth, because they cannot exist by itself without depending on other factors, conditions, cause. So therefore, there is no inherent existence of aging and death. There is no inherent existence of birth, and then feeling, contact, the link of contact, the link of six sense faculties, and the link of name and form, and then the link of existence, the link of grasping, cravings, the link of consciousness, the actions, and ignorance. So, okay. But when we change the cause and conditions, that can change. When we get rid of when we have realizations of emptiness, the antidote, that antidote, the wisdom realizing emptiness, can overcome and destroy the fundamental ignorance, the root of all this 12 link and all the sufferings. And when you cut and destroy that ignorance, then there is no more arising of the actions, contaminated actions, as a result of that ignorance. So then there is no more actions, contaminated action. When there is no more contaminated action being created, there is no consciousness that carry that karmic seed. Because there is no karmic seed, then in that moment, then there is no that particular consciousness that carry that particular karmic seed. And so then if there is no karmic seed, then there is no craving and grasping that can activate that karmic seed. And when there is no craving and grasping that can activate the karmic seed, then there is no more existence. And when there is no more existence, then there is no more result of that existence, such as name and form, sixth sense faculty, contact, feeling, birth and aging and death, samsaric birth, aging and death. And so there is extinction of all 12 link. And the extinction of those 12 link is there because when there is a change in the mind due to certain cause, condition, and factors, such as the factors of realizing the emptiness, the wisdom realizing the emptiness, that acts as a direct antidote to that, the root of all these 12 links. And that extinctions, or that can be destroyed, there is extinctions due to the change in the mind due to many factors, cause, condition, factors. Without those change, without the change in the mind, and without those cause and conditions, factors, one cannot change the mind. Without changing the mind, one cannot have the realization of the wisdom realizing emptiness. Without wisdom realizing emptiness, one cannot get rid of the ignorance. Without getting rid of the ignorance, then we cannot get rid of the rest of them. So the only reason that there is an extinction of the 12 link is because there is extinction of the ignorance. And the extinction of ignorance is there, but due to many factors. Therefore, the extinctions of ignorance do not happen by itself, by its own power, from its own side, by itself. It only happens, there is an extinction of ignorance because of many other factors, by depending on many other factors. Therefore, there's no inherent existing extinction of ignorance. Okay, even though there is extinctions of ignorance, but there's no inherent existence of ignorance. And then that is same with all the rest of the 12 link, you know. There is extinction of each of those 12 links, starting with the ignorance, but each of those extinction only happen by coming together many other factors. Those extinctions does not happen by itself, from its own side, by its own power, but by depending by other factors, by power of other factors. And therefore, so therefore again, you know, there is, so here it explains about the evolution of the samsara through 12 link, as well as the end of reverse of the samsara, the reverse of the samsara, the reverse of the 12 link, you know. So both the evolution of samsara as well as the reverse of the samsara happens, both of them only happen due to other factors. They do not happen by itself, by its own power, and therefore they are not inherent existence, truly existence. Okay, so that, and then the next one, similarly, there is no suffering, origination, cessation in the path. So that not only to a link, but also the Four Noble Truth, you know, there is sufferings, you know, there is sufferings. We cannot deny there is not sufferings. We experience on our everyday level, you know, different kind of suffering we experience on everyday level, physical suffering, mental, emotional sufferings. We cannot deny that. That is our direct experience. And that sufferings arises due to certain cause or origins, the karma, contaminated karma, and the delusions. You know, due to the cause or origin, you know, the main root. Of course, there is, you know, external conditions that contributes towards the sufferings. Okay, conditions, external conditions, whether it is the weather, whether it is someone's actions, whether it is a different element, they play factors in increasing our suffering or increasing our happiness. They do play a factor, but they are not the primary cause. The primary cause is our own action, karma, and our own mind. In terms of the suffering, then it is our own contaminated karma and our own delusion. That is the primary cause. It doesn't mean the external factor doesn't contribute towards that, but the primary cause is that. You know, without that primary cause, the external condition cannot create suffering for ourselves. But when there's the internal factors, that the karma and the delusion, and then there are external factors, and then that, you know, and so therefore, you know, there is, due to that contaminated karma and the delusion, then there is suffering, you know. And when that, the root of the suffering, the contaminated karma and delusion, when it is completely eliminated, when we get rid of that, then there is a cessations. Then there is no more sufferings. There is the cessations. There's a nirvana. There's no more sufferings. Because when you get rid of the cause, then there's no more result of that cause. You know. And since there is cessation, then there is the path that lead to that cessations. There's the path that lead to cessations. Okay, the path of, three higher training. And in terms of Mahayana teachings, then those three higher training that is supported by the both compassion, both the mind. Through that path, then one is able to achieve that cessations. And that is why we engage in the path. That's why we practice the Dharma. So to achieve that path, to cultivate that path, so we can achieve the cessations. But, all of them, whether it's the suffering, whether it's the origin, whether it's the cessation, whether it's the path, they all come into existence by depending on many other factors. They cannot come into existence, or they cannot function. The path cannot function as a path. The cessation cannot function as a cessations. The suffering cannot function as a sufferings. The cause of the suffering cannot function as a cause of suffering if it was not for the other factors. If it's not for other factors and conditions. It cannot function, it cannot act as it is by itself, by its own power, from its own side, without depending on other factors and conditions. Therefore, the suffering is empty of inherent nature, suffering of empty of independent nature or inherent nature. And not only the suffering, also the cause is empty of inherent and independent nature, because it is not independent. It cannot exist by itself from its own power without depending on other factors. And same with the cessation, same with the path. So when we understand that emptiness, as we discussed earlier, when we talk about the four profoundness of emptiness, starting with the form. So we talk quite a bit of that, and so more detail in that time. And so while we understand they are empty, because they are empty of inherent nature, empty of independent nature, while they are empty, at the same time, they functions. While they are empty, at the same time, they functions. And they give a different effect, different result. Different experiences. Give rise to different experiences, different function, different effect. While they are empty, if they are empty, how can they function? And give arise to different experience, different result, because of they all depend on other factors and conditions. When those factors and conditions change, then it changes the result, it changes the experience, it changes and so therefore that is all this become possible. All those different experiences become possible. And so therefore, when we understand that, and then, because we understand emptiness, we don't get, we don't get attached and aversions to the objects, because there is no objects to hold on that is inherently or independent existence, or something object that exists by itself from its own side. And so since there's no object to grasp on, and so when there's no object to grasp on, there's no aversion on the basis of grasping on the objects. There's no attachment and arises on the basis of grasping the objects. So there is no delusion, but at the same time, due to coming together, not by itself, but coming together of many other factors and conditions, there's the different functioning of different and giving rise to different experiences. So, and therefore, there's law of cause and effect. Since there's law of cause and effect, so therefore we have to avoid those who bring sufferings to oneself and others, and we try to engage into those actions that bring happiness to others and oneself. And so, and through that, then we are able to, not fall in any of the extreme, as mentioned before. And then next one, there is no exalted wisdom, no attainment, and also no non-attainments. So the subjects, exalted wisdom, through the practice of the path, through understanding the emptiness, through practice, at the very beginning, we study through listening, reading, we study about the nature of, ultimate nature of the things, phenomena, objects. And through that, then we started to reflect on what we have, we try to reflect on what we have studied and learned, and to have a wisdom first from learning, and then wisdom from reflections, and then what we have reflected, then we try to meditate, contemplate, and then we develop the wisdom through contemplation or meditations. And even those wisdom at the very beginning is by using inference, reasoning, logics. So there is concept involved in that. And then we continue to meditate, with that kind of concept in the inference, reasoning, and logics. And slowly, then as we progress on the path of, accumulation and preparation, then eventually we have direct realization of emptiness without any inference, but directly, without any inference, directly, and then when you have direct realization of the emptiness, then that is the exalted wisdom, exalted wisdom. And that exalted wisdom is the actual path, and that is the actual direct antidote towards all the delusion, and especially the fundamental ignorance, the root of all that. Okay? So that exalted wisdom arises and it functions as a direct antidote to the delusions and the ignorance. But that arising or cultivating that exalted wisdom depends on many factors, conditions that give rise. It doesn't come by itself. Do you get it? It doesn't come by itself. It doesn't arise by itself from its own side, by its own power, without depending on others. And therefore, there's no exalted, inherently existing exalted wisdom. Okay, there is exalted wisdom, but there is no inherently existing exalted wisdom. Not only there is no exalted wisdom, the path, there's no inherently existing the object to achieve, the object to achieve or attain, So through that exalted wisdom, supported by the bodhicitta mind and other practice or other perfections, then, one can achieve the attainment, fully enlightenment, the attainment, the final attainment, the final goal, the fully enlightenment. And that final goal, that final enlightenment, can be only achieved by depending on that exalted wisdom and bodhisattva mind, and other practice, such as the practice of generosity, moral discipline, patience, and so forth. Without depending on that, without relying on that, one cannot achieve that fully enlightenment. By relying on those practices, one can achieve fully enlightenment. But without depending on those factors, conditions, one cannot. Even though there is enlightenment, but there's no enlightenment to be achieved, the object to achieve the enlightenment by itself, by itself from its own power, by itself from it by its own power, from its own side. Therefore, there's no attainment. There's no attainment, and also no non-attainment. If there's no attainment, then there is no non-attainment. There are, as we discussed last time, they are mutually dependent on each other. So there is only attainment in relation to non-attainment. There is only non-attainment, only relation to the attainments. If there is no attainment, there is no non-attainment. If there is no non-attainment, there is no attainments. So therefore, everything is only in relative, in relation to something mutually, and I think so that will object of abandonment, or object to be abandoned, and object to be actualized. If there is no object to be abandoned, there is no object to achieve or actualize. If there is no object to be actualized, then there is no object to be attained. They all are mutually dependent on each other. It's coming and going, for example, coming and going, here and there, good and bad, small and big, everything. I think maybe it might be just to kind of on these subjects, I open, for example, I'm going to see my friends, okay? So there is my act, closing the door, and then act of my feet start, there is act of steps, okay? And my friends are waiting at his house, okay? And so that my act of moving my steps, okay? Taking those steps, is that act coming or going? Is that my act of those steps, is that coming or going? It's neither of them. It's neither coming, it's neither going. It's going from my point of view in relation to my point of view, from my side. It's coming from point of view of my friends. But the act itself is neither coming and going. And that's the same with everything, death and birth. From one perspective is birth, from another perspective is death. That action is neither death and neither birth. For example, the consciousness, the very moment the consciousness leaves this body, okay? The act of consciousness leaving this body, is that death or birth? It's neither of them. From the intermediate stage of point of view, the portal stage of point of view is birth. From this human point of view is death. My consciousness leaving this body, that very moment, the very moment my consciousness left, that very moment, it simultaneously at that very moment, this new intermediate pardo has taken into that pardo life. It is simultaneously. So from that point of view is a birth. From this human point of view is a death. But the consciousness living that this body is neither death or neither birth. It is only in relative. From the human point of view is death. From that intermediate state point of view is a birth. So therefore, that is why you hear in the teachings when you talk about emptiness, there's no aging, no death, or there's no birth and death, no coming, no goings, all of that. Because if you really analyze each of them are not themselves by itself. Small and big is same thing, This object is neither small or big, is big in relation to something which is smaller than this. This is small in relation to something which is bigger than this, but itself is neither big and small. We can only talk this as a small and big only in relation to some others. So therefore, that this object itself is neither small and neither big. And when you apply that understanding concept to everything, then we understand. So it's same with, so it came because I was talking about attainment and non-attainments. We only can talk of non-attainment in relation to the attainment, and attainment is non-attainment. So therefore, there is no attainment by itself. Okay, there's no non-attainment by itself. And so that is, and I think, yeah, that is. So when we understand that, then it is, we really, okay, yeah. So, and the next one is, from next, then it is by relying on the path of the wisdom, then, how one achieves the fully enlightenment, how one achieves the enlightenment. So Shariputra, therefore, yeah, I don't know why it suddenly when something came in. So next one is, how by relying on the path of the wisdom, which so far it discussed the path of wisdom of accumulation preparations, the path of wisdom of the path of seeing, and path of meditation up to here. By depending on that, by relying on the path of the wisdom that is supported by the Bodhicitta mind and other method practice, how one achieve the fully enlightenment or fully awakened state. So Shariputra, therefore, because there's no attainments, Bodhisattva rely on. So so therefore there is no inherently existing attainment, non-attainments. When you have realization of the emptiness directly, then there is no grasping of this something to attain, something to not attain, something to abandon, something to non-abandon. There's no grasping to that because of understanding of the emptiness. There's no more grasping to that. When you don't have understanding of the emptiness, then we started to have grasping to the attainments, aversion to the non, and all of that. And so therefore, because there's no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on enduring perfection of wisdom, the mind without obscuration, without fear, So without obscuration, when you have direct realization of emptiness, then you don't have any kind of, strong grasping of inherently existing of the self or other phenomena. There's no more that obscuration. So when there's no more that obscuration, when there's no more that grasping, there's no more that obscuration. When there's no more of that obscurations, then there's no more fear. Our fear, if we analyze where does the fear come from, it comes through grasping. All our fears come from grasping. Because of our grasping, we don't want to lose something. We don't want to see something happening, All our fears, anxiety, worries, where they come from, if we go deep, is from grasping, grasping. I don't want, because of my grasping, I don't want certain things not to happen. And there is fear of happening that. Because of grasping, I don't want to lose something, and there's fear of losing that. So all this fear comes from grasping, and when you have no more grasping, obscuration, there's no more fear. And according to some commentary, they say there's no fear towards the emptiness. Also that too. When you have realization of emptiness, then you have no more fear to the of emptiness. Because when someone do not have realization of emptiness, when they try to meditate on emptiness, sometimes it can rise to fear because they feel like they're losing all their identity, At the moment, we are strong, grasping our identity, who we are, as a self. We feel there is a strong sense of we identify ourselves, because of our appearance, body, emotions, our educations, our society, whatever. So we have our own identification, which we grasp very strongly. But when you meditate, then sometimes you feel like you are kind of losing all this that you identified, and that and so sometimes it can give rise to a lot of fear, And so that's something that then it says, okay. And having completely passed beyond the era, there is the end point of nirvana, So by relying on that, by depending or relying on that wisdom path supported by the method, then they completely pass beyond the era of the obscurations of delusions and obscurations, the subtle obscuration of the knowledge, not only just the obscuration of the delusion, but also the imprint led by those delusions. That is the subtle obscuration. That is known as obscuration of knowledge or subtle obscurations. The example it is like, for example, the delusion like the garlic, okay? So you put a garlic in your cup. Even when you're taking away the delusion, still there is still some smell of the delusion. There's no more the garlic, but still there is smell of that has been left by the garlic. Similarly, even we don't have any more delusion, even when you have overcome the obscuration delusion, still there is the subtle obscuration that is led by imprint by that. And that subtle obscuration is that the appearance of inherent existence. Okay. You don't have any more grasping, but still there is appearance of that. you know. If you don't have grasping, why do you have that appearance? And because of that, even though just like garlic is no more there, but still there is the smell of that. Similarly, there is no more delusion, but still the imprint left by that is still there, and therefore that is that appearance. And that appearance, the appearance of that inherent existence, even though you have no more grasping, but still appearance of that is obstruct you from being the omniscient, the Buddha, you know. And so that is the subtle obscurations. So pass beyond error, you know, all this obscuration, and then having that, there is the end point of nirvana, you know. So then the Bodhisattva achieve non-abiding nirvana, okay. And non-abiding nirvana means that that one does not abide or dwell in any of the extreme of samsara or the extreme of individual blissfulness, you know. And when you are, so that non-abiding nirvana is different from the nirvana of the arhat. Okay. So all the Buddhas, where is that? All the Buddhas who dwell in 3 times, so also manifestly completely awakened, unsurprised, but perfect, complete enlightenment, relying on perfection of wisdom. So all the past Buddhas, they achieved Buddhahood, fully enlightenment, by relying on the wisdom path, the perfection of wisdom that is being supported by the method. Also, all the present Buddhas also achieve their fully enlightenment in relying on the wisdom. And also all the future Buddhas will achieve fully enlightenment, all by relying on the wisdom. And without relying on that wisdom path, the wisdom relies on emptiness, the perfection of wisdom, one will not be able to achieve fully enlightenment. Not only fully enlightenment, even to achieve arhat, individual liberation, arhat, still you need to have the wisdom relying on emptiness. Without wisdom relying on emptiness, not only one cannot achieve the fully enlightenment, one will not even be able to achieve individual liberation, arhat. And so therefore, okay. Therefore, the mantra of perfection of wisdom. So here the mantra, normally the mantra, the meaning of mantra is something that protects your mind. It's 2 words, man and tara. Man means mind. Tara is protections. You know, so it is something that protects your mind. Okay. So protecting your mind from suffering, protecting your mind from obscuration, protecting your mind from delusions, you know, protecting mind from your impure visions and so forth, you know. So it's basically something that protects your mind from something bad, you know. So that is, so here the mantra here, when he said the mantra of perfection, the wisdom mantra, the mantra here actually means the wisdom lies in the emptiness directly. That is what it's calling here. Okay. That wisdom, the perfection of the wisdom, okay, or that Prajnaparamita, or the perfection of wisdom, is the mantra, because that is the one that protects your mind from taking rebirth and lower rebirth. It is that wisdom that protects you from engaging in non-virtuous actions. It's that wisdom that protects you from all these delusions and all the suffering that comes out of that delusions. So it is that wisdom that protects you. Therefore, you know, and so therefore that wisdom is mantra of perfection of wisdom, because that wisdom takes us from the oceans of samsara towards the shore, the other side of the samsara, the nirvana. Okay, therefore that wisdom is the mantra of perfection of wisdom. The mantra of great knowledge, because that wisdom is the mantra of great knowledge, because it destroys the ignorance. It destroys the ignorance. And because that wisdom destroys that ignorance, therefore is the mantra of great knowledge. The unsurprised mantra, and it is unsurprised mantra because there's no higher path or method to achieve enlightenment than this wisdom relies on emptiness, because this wisdom relies on emptiness directly. There's nothing higher than this Prajnaparamita or the exalted wisdom to achieve enlightenment. So therefore, unsurprised mantra. The mantra equal to the unequal. There are kind of some slightly different way of presenting it according to different, according to some different commentaries. In some commentaries, it is unequal is the Buddhahood, kind of that, above everything supreme, unequal, and it is the mantra that lead to that unequal state of the Buddhahood, and therefore is equal to the unequal. In one commentary, they explain, unequal here refer to the Sambhogakaya of Buddha, and equal refer to the Dhammakaya. And so, because this wisdom, Prajnaparamita or exalted wisdom, lead to that state of, the equal is the Dhammakaya, and then unequal the Rupakaya, and so therefore is the mantra of equal to the unequaled. And it doesn't explain why it is called equal and unequal, but I'm assuming because Rupakaya, the bodies, is because some of them in Sambhogakaya form, some of them in Nirvanakaya form. So everyone do not have access to the Sambhogakaya form, Ordinary being does not have access to that. So somebody like that in that sense, but also Sambhogakaya form has all the enlightened marks and major and minor mark, and whereas Nirvanakaya does not always have the all these marks, because they manifest in different form and they do not always have that marks. And so in that sense, maybe there's a unequal within the different Rupakaya or form bodies, whereas in Dhammakaya, then they're all equal. There is no difference of that in that way. So maybe it's equal and unequal. And that mantra that totally pacifies all the sufferings. And this exalted wisdom, this exalted wisdom is the mantra that totally pacifies all the suffering, because it pacifies and free from all the sufferings, all the suffering, by cutting the very root of all the sufferings. And it should be known as truth, since it's not false. And that, the Prajnaparamita, the wisdom, the object of that wisdom, the ultimate truth, or you can refer to the ultimate truth itself, the emptiness itself, or the wisdom relies on emptiness directly, is the truth, since it's not false, because unlike the conventional phenomena, there's a different appearance than what they are. So it's a false. Whereas ultimate reality is the way it is, it appears to that mind perceiving the ultimate emptiness directly, as it is. Instead of different appearance, it appears the same as it is, therefore is truth, not false. And also the wisdom itself. The mantra of perfection of wisdom is declared, so then Tata gade gade para gade parasam gade bodhe so. So here it is explaining the path in a very the path to the enlightenment in a summarizing, because we already went through that, the path of preparations and accumulations, and then the path of seeing, the path of meditations, and then the result, how achieving enlightenment. But here, kind of summarizing through this, and this is the path. So, that thus it is. Om is an auspicious kind of auspiciousness. It has that auspiciousness beginnings, as well as it Om has 3 letters, A, O, Ma, and that shows the enlightened body and speech that we want to achieve, that we want to achieve. So enlightened body, speech, and mind that we want to achieve. And then Gade Gade Para Para Parasam Gade Bodhe, that shows the path to achieve that enlightened body, speech, and mind, the path to achieve that. And so it is Gade Gade means gone, gone. Para Gade, gone beyond. Parasam Gade, gone truly. And Bodhi is the enlightenment. So be it, or be rooted. So first Gade, gone, is gone from ordinary state to the first path, the path of accumulations. Gade, Gade. Second Gade is gone from the path of accumulations to the path of preparations, as you have realized the emptiness through the meditations. And gone beyond is as you continue to meditate on emptiness and accumulate merit that you need to accumulate during those 2 paths, and you continue to meditate on emptiness, at the same time you try to accumulate the merit that you need to support. And when you accumulated enough merit, and through that, as you make more progress in your realization of emptiness, to have less and less dualistic view as you progress from each path, and then eventually you are able to go beyond, gone beyond to the path of seeing, where there you are no more dualistic. When you have direct realization of emptiness, and when you are that meditative equipoise, as we discussed last time, there's no more dualistic appearance anymore in that state of the mind. There's no more when you are in that meditative equipoise on emptiness, then there's no more dualistic appearance in that mind. So gone beyond the ordinary to Arya path of seeings, and truly gone, Parasamgade, truly gone is, then, when you achieve the path of seeing, then, you completely destroy what is known as the abandonment of the path of seeing. And basically, there are three, the ignorance that has been kunda is I don't know, the fabricated grasping, not the innate grasping, but the grasping that has been kind of what you call the grasping that has been supported by some kind of reasoning and logics, For example, innate grasping does not have that kind of things, For example, the animal, when they see the objects, there's appearance of inherent existence and there's grasping of that, In that there is no kind of reasoning and logic. But in our cases, sometimes, when I see cup, it must exist from its own side because I can hold on that because it holds the tea. We have this kind of reasoning. Do you get it? Why this is inherent existence? When I say, this computer must exist from its own side because I can touch it, or I can break it down, or maybe, if it doesn't exist from its side, then why don't, when I'm in other places, in other room, why this computer is not there? Do you get it? How come this computer is not other room? So therefore, it must be exist from its own side. If it doesn't exist from its own side, this computer should be there when I go to the other room. Or when I go outside, it should be there. So sometimes we have that kind of, reasoning logic why it exists inherently. I'm just giving one example of that, but there's so many different reasons why we feel there's inherent existence, not just appearance. So that is we call kuntak, jigda kuntak, that has been supported. That is grasping has supported that kind of, and so that will be completely kind of abandoned by the path of seeing, but still the innate, it's there, innate grasping is still there, and then through the path of meditations, through the rest of the 9 bhumis, the first bhumi is path of seeing, and then in the path of meditation, then the rest of 10 bhumi, then with each of those bhumi, then you overcome those innate grasping from subtle to more subtle one. First, the gross, and then the first 3 gross one, and then next 3 bhumi, the 3 subtles, and then the last 3 bhumi, the most subtle one, the gross of most subtle, the gross of subtle, and the middle of subtle, and subtle of most subtle, like that, and then at the end, and 10 bhumi, by relying on the concentration known as the concentration like a vajra, then they completely eliminate and destroy even the most subtle of the obscuration, even the most subtle of the obscurations. And then when you have overcome that, even the most subtle of the obscuration, then you achieve fully enlightenment. And when you achieve full enlightenment, then there is, as I mentioned before, then there is no more distinguish between, meditative session and post-meditative sessions. Every moment is meditative session, every moment post-meditative sessions. Until then, the Bodhisattva, even the 10 Bhumi Bodhisattvas, they have meditative session and post-meditative sessions. During the meditative session, they engage in deep meditation on emptiness. During the post-meditation session, then they try to help and benefit sentient beings through the practice of generosity, through the practice of moral discipline, through the practice of patience and whatever others. So they cannot function both together at the same time for the Bodhisattva, even the 10 Bhumi, okay? They cannot function this meditative, while you are being meditative equipoise, you cannot engage in the activities of helping and benefiting other sentient beings. When you are trying to help and benefit sentient beings in actions through generosity and others' help and like that, one cannot be in meditative equipoise. But when you achieve enlightenment, fully enlightenment, then they become one. You are in deep meditative equipoise all the time, 24 hours, And all the 24 hours at the same time, you are helping, benefiting sentient beings and doing the post-meditative activities, And so then, yeah. And the body is the enlightenment, the result. So when you, through that Vajra-like concentration, you overcome that most subtle obscurations, and then you achieve the body, the fully enlightenment, the supreme enlightenment. And so, be it rooted in your mind. And so that explained the whole kind of the path and the result, and how to achieve that result, the fully enlightenment, through engaging in those wisdom path, supported by the method. And once you achieve that fully enlightenment, then it's limitless of benefiting sentient beings. Everything is spontaneous, limitless. At the moment when we need to do something, we need to have the intentions. I want to do this, I must do this, motivation, intention. When you actually enlightened, there's no more motivation, no more intention. It just comes like this. Just like the sun does not have intention, motivation to help, but the earth received the help naturally by that. Same way, that is why simultaneously, why it can help benefit limitlessly. And also because there's no more distinguishing of meditative equipoise and non-meditative equipoise, so you can function that all the time in that way. So that is then your activities to benefit sentient beings become limitless and spontaneous, ceaseless, inexhaustible, endless. And so that. Then next one, is kind of advising at the end, again, summarizing the advice to practice and meditate on the perfection of wisdom. So Shariputra, the Bodhisattva master, should train in the profound perfection of wisdom like that, So therefore, just as it has explained detail, just as it has already been explained detail, now it's saying, if I summarize shortly what all this Avalokiteshvara is saying to Shariputra, and the rest of the audience who are there, then a practitioner such as Bodhisattvas should train in the profound perfection of wisdom, as just have described, by seeing whatever object, whatever phenomena, all of them being empty of inherent nature, by seeing all of them being as empty of inherent nature, empty of inherent existence. By seeing that, then one should train your mind or engage your mind into that practice, the perfection of wisdom like that. Then the Bhagavan arose from that concentration and commented the Bodhisattva master by Avalokiteshvara, well said, son of the lineage. It is like that, it is like that. One should practice the profound perfection of wisdom, just as you were indicated, even the Tathagata rejoice. In some commentary, they explain, here they explain the Bhagavan arose from the concentrations. Of course, Bhagavan is always in concentration. There's no time when he's concentration and non-concentration, as just mentioned. So there is no time arousing or not arousing. But to the audience, he showed that aspect. To the audience, he showed as he was in deep meditation before, and now that he's coming out of that deep meditations. That is the audience, the disciple, observe that or see that even though he's still in deep meditation at that time, or he was still arose even when he was deep meditation earlier. But because the sentient beings cannot perceive that, so to them they see in that way according to their mind. So it is a description of what the sentient beings, the audience, disciples, seeing that. And one reason why Buddha was in a deep meditative equipoise at the same time engaging the post-meditative activities of others, because here, while he was deep meditation, he was aware of all the conversations that was going between the Shariputra and Avalokiteshvara. Okay, for a non-enlightened, like a ordinary beings, non-unenlightened, when they are in that meditative equipoise, they will not be aware of all this conversation that's going on. Okay, when they are in that deep meditative equipoise meditation, then they will not be aware of that, you know. And so, that is where it also, so the Bhagavad, and well said, you know. So, and it is like that. It's like that. So he's saying, you know, that what you have just taught, what you have just discussed, you know, is correct, and is, as you have said, is correct, you know, confirming, you know, because within the audience, some might have some doubt. Well, Avalokiteshvara said that, but is that the case? Buddha didn't say anything about that, you know. So to make sure that what he said is that the Buddha agree and he's aware and he confirmed that all this information, all the dialogue that Shariputra shared, that is correct, you know, so that everyone has confidence, everyone in there who are hearing, they have confidence that is correct, that's unmistaken, and so for that, you know, then and even the Tathagatas rejoice. So here he's saying, not only I rejoice, Buddha himself, but he's saying even all others, Tathagatas of the Buddha of 10 directions, rejoice for all that teachings or that instructions or that sharing of that wisdom or that knowledge, you know. And then Bhagavan has spoken, the Venerable Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Master. So those are the, you know, ordains. There are all different kind of beings, not only the human beings, but there are also many other non-human beings, you know. So therefore, Shariputra, of course, Shariputra in human form, Bodhisattva Master Avalokiteshvara, you know, is probably not in human form, you know, and then surrounding the entirely along the world, the gods probably not in human form, then human asuras, Gandharvas were overjoyed and highly praised as spoken by the Bhagavan, you know. And so, yeah, sometimes we never know who is coming to listen to teachings, you know, and especially, you know, I think some of the high lamas, you know, I think they can see that. I think they can see, they can feel the other beings being in those teachings, you know. That is my impression. I observe. Sometimes that's how I feel. Like I've seen there are cases sometimes with His Holiness where it seems like that he was communicating with non-human disciples or audience there, and also sometimes with Lama Zopa, sometimes you feel a little bit like that he is, you know, he is teaching someone else that we cannot see there, you know, and communicating with them through those teachings. So anyway, so that is kind of short. So yeah, any questions, please?
Please raise the hand. Yeah, Andrea.
Yes, please.
Thank you, Geshe-la. I have some questions. Thank you. So
yes.
My first question, maybe it's not directly related, but these contaminated aggregates. We have contaminated aggregates because of karma and delusions, and yeah. But if somebody who realizes emptiness directly, still this person can decide to be born as a human, but they are then not having contaminated aggregates anymore, but they are not suffering anymore because their state of mind is somewhere at a higher level.
Yeah, I think when you have direct realization emptiness, you don't create any new contaminated karma. Okay, you stop creating any new contaminated karma. But they could still have contaminated karma from the past, imprint of contaminated past that they have. They don't create any more new, but there it could be something that from the past. For example, if we achieve the path of seeing, or beyond that path of meditation, or even achieve arhat, for example, in this life, still this body is contaminated body. Is a result of our previous contaminated karma and the delusions. And so therefore, you can still have some physical discomfort. You don't have mental sufferings because you have no more delusions. You don't have any mental problem, any suffering, mental, emotional problem. But because this body is a ordinary body that is a result of previous karma and delusion, you could still have some physical discomfort and like that, you know. But when you have direct realized emptiness, from that one word, you don't create any new more contaminated karma, and but you could still be experiencing the physical in that cases if it's still result of previous contaminated karma. Yeah, so that would be one. And then, as I mentioned, when you have a direct, of course, when you have achieved arhat, absolutely that you have no more mental suffering at all. But even if you have not achieved arhat, when you have direct realization and emptiness, you know, you would not have so much of mental sufferings as, you know, because of direct realization, because you don't have, even you have delusion, but you don't have strong delusion, you know. It's not a gross and strong like we have, you know. Still, they still have innate grasping, but it is not very subtle, you know, compared to, and because the grasping is small and subtle, therefore, even there's a arising of some delusion, they are still very subtle, and because it is subtle, so it doesn't affect so badly in the way it affects to us. Yeah.
Thank you. Another thing, just today, theoretically, a suffering, the nature of suffering then is not suffering. No?
The nature of suffering and not suffering, what does that mean?
I know, because we said that the nature of things, there is no nature of things theoretically, because everything is so dependent on others. Theoretically, it is not.
Suffering is not suffering by itself.
Yeah.
Suffering is not suffering by itself. The suffering is suffering because of other conditions, other factors.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And the last,
Yeah. If you take away all the condition and factors that makes suffering as a suffering, there wouldn't be that same, suffering wouldn't be suffering. The only suffering is because of many other conditions and factors that make it as a suffering, Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So, and my last question is about the fear. When we meditate on emptiness, it must be, it always, how they said, have to come with fear or not?
No.
Okay.
According to what I have read, okay, in many commentaries, they say if you have a strong marriage, you will not have the fear. You will have blissful when you have first realization of emptiness. But if you don't have enough support of the marriage, when you first are having that experience of having the realization of emptiness, you could have a fear, you know, fear arising at the moment just before you have realizations, you know. So the practitioner can have different experiences according to how much support of other factors like meditation you have. So definitely I have read and seen that in some commentaries. So that is, yeah, that's all I can share. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Most welcome. So any others?
Therese?
Yes, I have also two questions. So the first one is more question if I understood that correctly. So when you are saying, therefore, the mantra of the perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the mantra here doesn't refer to the Tayata Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasam Gate Soha. It refers to the direct realization of emptiness. Is that what
The actual real mantra is the wisdom realizing the emptiness directly. That is the actual real mantra, you know. And the word, the mantra, Tayata Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasam Gate is, as I mentioned, it is not the actual wisdom itself, but it is the word that we recite and that has its positive impact, that has a virtuous impact, and that can help us to realize the emptiness and to be on the path of the wisdom through those 5 paths. But yeah, the actual real mantra is the wisdom realizing the emptiness.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. And so we can say that this Tayata Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasam Gate Bodhisoha is the summary of the Heart Sutra from what is said until
yes, you can say. Yeah, it is the summary of that. It is the path of Prajnaparamita is summary. Yeah.
Good. And then another more general question about the Heart Sutra. So as you know, it's recited very often before teachings, and I doubt that all people understand the meaning who recite it. And so I think there must be good imprints, but isn't it also a danger if you kind of learn in the teaching about the 12 links and then you recited the 12 links, there is no ignorance and so on? Isn't that a danger of falling into nihilism?
For some people, of course, there can be danger of falling in nihilism if they don't have some understanding of that and background of that. But also, it has a good imprint, you know. Good imprint. One, you know, is to kind of dispel whatever is a very powerful. Of course, meditating on emptiness is the most powerful practice to overcome or dispel the obstacles or interference, whatever. But even you don't have the wisdom realizing emptiness, or even we cannot meditate on emptiness, even just reciting, such as the Heart Sutra that teach the emptiness and how to meditate, that also had some impact to dispel and to dispel the interference obstacles. So that's why one try to recite at the very beginning. You know, there is always kind of, you know, like a lot of time, there's always in many things, you know, there's always kind of what you call proxy dogs or something, kind of like two opposite kind of things.
Paradox.
Paradox, almost like paradox, you know. And the question you ask a little bit, or the answer to that might be a little bit like that, you know. I guess it depends on individual how they take on it, you know. There's even if someone might have a nihilist, even if someone who has no understanding and read it, and even it might lead them to feel have a nihilism view at the moment, but because they have an imprint of that, maybe it might allow them to have better realization and emptiness in the future quickly when they meet the right teachings and right teachers and right teachings, because of that imprint. Even though momentarily they have this nihilism view, it leads to nihilism view because they didn't have the background and understanding. But because of that imprint, in the future, who didn't have imprint and who had imprint now, for that, there's someone who has imprint, when they meet the right teachings, right teachers, right teachings, they could make could have understanding, realization more quickly. And so therefore, maybe it's worthwhile even to go through a little bit of that nihilism. It's similar like the fear also that, fear part 2, when you do meditation, someone who doesn't have enough support merit, they could have that kind of fear. Normally, we don't want to fear. Fear is not something that would. But going through that fear is good for certain practitioners, and overcome that fear and then lead to the realizations. So similarly, so certain individuals going that fear was necessary, needed to reach the realizations.
Great, thank you.
Okay. So then we don't do the dedications. Is there any questions?
Well,
Not?
One more,
Yes.
Ariella.
Okay, please.
Thank you, Geshe-la, for your teachings. In regards to your beautiful example from before, going to your friend, that your steps, you're not coming and you're not going. And when our conscience leaves our body, are we dying or are we being reborn? And you said that because it's happening simultaneously, so basically it's neither of them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how to ask the question. Is that relevant to everything that we do in life? Because I've been trying to think, if I'm eating at the moment, what would be if I'm sleeping at the moment, what would be I don't want to call it opposite.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, if we reflect, you will find, these things I have been reflecting, like reflecting, and suddenly I begin to understand theoretically, understand why this is no coming, going by itself. Sometimes when I walk, I start to think and contemplate, and suddenly one day it kind of pop up, kind of enlighten my mind. Theoretically, I'm just theoretically, not talking about realizations, even just intellectually, theoretically trying to understand why it's not coming and going by itself, and then after that, then I started to think about birth and death, and then that is again that. And so I haven't thought so many of like that in each of that, because, but if we really think enough, I think most things, if not everything, probably have similar. For example, eating. Is it eating or am I creating a garbage? When you think of eating, it is something related positive. But if you are thinking something, you are making a garbage, it is something negative. So actually, is it actually making the kakas and urine and which the garbage that we don't want, we want to throw it, or are we eating that? So again, since you said that, so then that is one thought that came in my mind. But I think maybe there might be a different way of thinking in that way too, again, sleeping, I don't know, I haven't thought about it, but like, for some it can be sleeping, or for some it could be awakening, is sleeping awakening, it is something, again, it is a practitioners who use the sleeping as a method, sleep and the dream as a method for their practice, is awake, very much awake. You know, for ordinary is asleep. For a truly kind of experienced practitioner who use that sleep and the dream in the practice, actually they are more awake than actually are they. So is it awake or is it asleep? You know, so again, for ordinary being is asleep. For a highly advanced practitioner is fully awake. So I guess, you know, if we try to apply that to, I think there is always that we could find that, you know, I have been given enough time to really reflect on each of that, you know, on that way. But even this one, since you asked, I'm just thinking about it, but I don't know, you know, yeah. But I would think that there will be something like that.
Thank you.
Okay. So then we'll do the dedications. So due to all the virtues that we have created during those 3 sessions, with our good intention, giving our precious time and trying to reflect, contemplate what we have heard, you know. So due to all these virtues, you know, may we and all sentient beings be able to achieve fully enlightenment as soon as possible, and lead all other sentient beings to that fully enlightened state. Jawadi nyodo da lama sangye do pyone do chi kama leva de sala kweba. We also dedicate all the virtues to actualize within our minds and all sentient beings the 2 bodhicitta mind, ultimate and conventional bodhicitta mind. Those who have not actualized to actualize, and those who have already actualized, not diminish but increase more and more. Chanjo semjo rinpoche ma ke pana ke kyuchi ke wa nyamba me ba kon le kon to pe wa. We also dedicate all our virtues to the long life His Holiness Lama Zopa Rinpoche, all the holy beings, all the gurus, to have a long, healthy life. All their noble wishes, projects, activity is successful without any obstacles. And may we be under their guidance in this life, in Pardo, in all futures, until we achieve enlightenment, under their guidance, care. And may we be able to please them by following their instructions, advice, teachings, and actualizing within our minds, mind stream, all those advice, teachings, practices. And due to all the virtues, the merit that is empty from its own side, may I, which empty from its own side, achieve fully enlightenment, which empty from its own side, for the benefit of all sentient beings, which empty from its own side. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Geshe-la. Thank you so much for your
Thank you,
teaching.
Geshe-la.
This is really the teachings which we need to develop our wisdom, I think, to one day be able to benefit perfectly all other beings. And we are very happy to have you in Zurich in January. So we're looking forward to that, and we hope that you will be there for us for many, many more teachings. Thank you so much, and we would like to offer you a mandala to finish your teachings.
Sashi perki yukcheng meto Trahamri rablengi nihire gyambari Sange shindu mechi ubagi Yokunanda shila Chepaksho Yetsu lama dampakyenam Kecherki kala Kense chuchinchi Ita sambe junche mala Sakye chuki japa Vatu so Iram Guru Ratna Mantalakami Sayami. Thank you, Geshe-la. Thank you to everyone joining in for these wonderful teachings. And hope to see you again soon. And please remember, on Friday there will be a Avalokiteshvara sadhana in the vein of these tonight's teachings. So hopefully see you there. And thank you, everyone. And again, thank you, Geshe-la. Much appreciated. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Thank you,
Take care.
Thank
Geshe-la.
you.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thank
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Geshe-la.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
everyone.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Good
you.
evening.
Ciao.
Bye. Thank you very much.
Thank you.